The rain had just stopped. When Lily Chen stepped off the bus and crossed the street toward Peterson's Auto Gallery, the city glistened with wet reflections, neon lights shimmering across puddles like broken glass. Her uniform still smelled faintly of coffee and apple pie from her long shift at Rosemary's Diner, and her sneakers left quiet prints on the polished floor as she entered the dealership. For 3 years, Lily had counted every tip, saved every extra coin, skipping new clothes and vacations, all for this moment. She had her eye on the silver sedan gleaming in the corner, a car that to anyone else might have been ordinary, but to her it meant independence, reliability, and a little piece of dignity. At 38, life hadn't gone easy on her, but she'd learned to carry herself with quiet grace, chin up, heart steady even when life wasn't kind. Her grandmother used to tell her, "Sweetheart, never let the world decide your worth." Those words had carried her through more nights than she could count. As Lily approached the car, she traced a finger along the smooth metal. It wasn't just a vehicle. It was the result of years of hope and hard work. But before she could imagine herself behind the wheel, a voice cut through her thoughts. "Can I help you with something, ma'am?" The tone wasn't friendly. It had that polished arrogance of someone who'd already made up their mind. She turned to find a man in his 30s, crisp shirt, slicked back hair, name tag glinting under the showroom lights, Blake Morrison, senior sales associate. Lily smiled politely. "Yes, I'd like to learn more about this model. Maybe take it for a test drive." Blake's lips twisted into something that resembled a smile, but wasn't. "This is our latest Accord, brand new. Are you sure you're looking in the right section? We've got some excellent used options out back, more affordable ones." The words landed harder than he probably realized. Lily had dealt with snide remarks before, customers at the diner snapping, fingers for coffee, people assuming waitress meant uneducated, but something about Blake's smirk carried extra weight. She kept her composure. "I've done my research," she said softly. "I'm interested in this one." Blake folded his arms, scanning her from head to toe. "Ma'am, I just don't want to waste your time. Cars like this go for around $32,000. That's a serious purchase." There it was, the unspoken message. "You don't belong here." Lily inhaled slowly, steadying the rush of heat in her chest. She'd been invisible her whole life to people like him, but she wouldn't let him take her dignity, too. "I understand the price," she said calmly. "I'd still appreciate a look at financing options." Blake gave a short laugh, sharp enough to draw attention from across the showroom. "Financing? Sure, though I'm guessing your budget might stretch more toward something pre-owned. Maybe a 2018 Civic. It's got a few scratches, but it runs." A few customers nearby looked up, sensing the tension. An elderly salesman in the corner frowned but stayed quiet. Lily felt their eyes on her. Sympathy from some, judgment from others. She stood taller. "I'd like to see this car, please," she said again. Blake sighed dramatically as if humoring a child. "All right, sweetheart. But you should know. This model costs more than most people in food service make in a year." The word sweetheart hit like an insult wrapped in sugar. Her stomach knotted. She wanted to walk out, but something inside her refused. Her grandmother's voice echoed again. "People can't take your worth unless you give it away." "Money doesn't define character," Lily said quietly. Blake chuckled. "Maybe not, but it definitely decides what kind of car you can drive." The arrogance in his tone made the air around them grow heavy. Even the hum of background music seemed to fade. Lily's hands trembled slightly, but not from fear. "I'd still like to discuss the purchase," she repeated, her voice steady. Blake leaned closer. "Tell you what," he said loudly enough for others to hear. "If you can show me $15,000 in cash right now, I'll let you sit in the driver's seat. Otherwise, I think we're done here." The elderly salesman finally spoke up. "Son," he said, his voice rough with years of experience, "that's no way to treat a lady." But Blake waved him off. "Frank, relax. I'm just saving her from embarrassment." Lily's throat tightened, but she kept her tears at bay. Every word Blake spoke was a reminder of every insult she'd swallowed. Every moment the world had told her she was less. She'd worked double shifts, studied business reports at her kitchen table, and built quiet dreams no one knew about. Dreams that didn't fit neatly into her uniform or her tired shoes. "You're right," she finally said, her voice calm, almost too calm. "I am wasting time, my own." She turned toward the glass doors. The couple by the SUV glanced at each other awkwardly. The elderly salesman shook his head in silent disappointment. "Hey," Blake called out as she reached for the handle. "Don't take it personally, sweetheart. Some people are just meant to serve coffee, not drive luxury cars." The words echoed behind her, cruel and unnecessary. Lily paused at the door, her reflection staring back from the glass. For a moment, she felt the weight of every dismissal, every moment she'd been made to feel invisible. But then she exhaled slowly, and lifted her chin. Tomorrow would be different. She didn't know how yet, but deep inside, something had shifted. The same resilience that had carried her through years of struggle whispered quietly, "Your worth doesn't need their approval." As she stepped into the drizzle outside, the rain felt lighter, almost cleansing. Behind her, Blake had already turned back to his desk, thinking the encounter was over. He had no idea that the woman he'd just humiliated was about to teach him, and everyone watching, a lesson they'd never forget. The morning broke clear and bright, washing the city in sunlight that shimmered across every raindrop left from the night before. Lily Chen stood before her small bedroom mirror, fastening the buttons on a navy blue suit she hadn't worn in years. Her reflection looked different, sharper, more certain. The timid waitress from yesterday was gone. Her hair was swept into an elegant twist, her makeup light but confident. The woman in the mirror looked like she belonged in boardrooms, not behind a diner counter. And in truth, that's exactly who she was, just hidden in plain sight. Lily had never told anyone at Rosemary's Diner about her other life. They saw her as hardworking, kind, reliable, but none of them knew she was the quiet force behind the Chen Foundation, a nonprofit that funded education, small businesses, and housing for single parents. For 3 years, she'd worked undercover at the diner, staying connected to the community she wanted to help. But yesterday's humiliation had stirred something deeper. Not anger, exactly, but a desire to remind people like Blake Morrison that compassion costs nothing, and assumptions can be costly. At Peterson's Auto Gallery, Blake was already in his element, sipping coffee, arranging brochures, pretending to work while glancing at his reflection in the glass doors. The rain had cleaned the world outside, but not his ego. He'd already forgotten about the waitress from yesterday. To him, she was just another nobody who'd wasted his time. The automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh. Blake looked up out of habit and froze. A woman in a tailored suit walked through the entrance, heels clicking softly against the showroom floor. Her presence commanded attention, calm, composed, effortlessly confident. For a brief moment, Blake thought she was some kind of executive or investor. Then recognition hit him like cold water. "Good morning, Blake," she said smoothly, her voice calm and deliberate. Blake blinked. Wait, Lily?" "That's right," she said, offering a polite smile. "I believe we have some unfinished business." Blake straightened his tie, trying to recover his composure. Look, about yesterday." "No need to apologize yet," Lily interrupted gently. "I'm here to buy a few cars." The words didn't register at first. Few?" he repeated. "Yes, I represent the Chen Foundation. We're expanding our community outreach program and need a fleet of reliable vehicles." For a moment, all the air seemed to leave the room. The name Chen Foundation wasn't new to Blake, even he'd heard of it. A quiet powerhouse that had transformed local businesses, helped underprivileged schools, and funded neighborhood renewal projects. He'd read about it in the papers, but never imagined its founder would walk into his showroom, especially not disguised as a waitress. Lily continued, her voice warm but steady. "Yesterday, you assumed I couldn't afford this car because of my uniform. What you didn't know is that I own the building where 3 of my restaurants operate, including Rosemary's Diner. I work alongside my employees because it reminds me where I came from and who I serve." A stunned silence swept through the room. Other salespeople stopped pretending to work. A couple of customers glanced up from the SUV display. Blake swallowed hard, color draining from his face. I didn't realize." "No," Lily said quietly. "You didn't want to realize. There's a difference." Just then, Frank, the elderly salesman from the day before, approached with a smile. "Miss Chen," he said respectfully, "it's an honor to see you again. I'd be glad to personally assist you today." Lily's face softened. "Thank you, Frank, that would mean a lot." The dealership's general manager, hearing the commotion, rushed out from his office, his forehead shining with panic. "Miss Chen," he began breathlessly, "welcome." I wasn't aware you'd be visiting us personally. Please, anything you need? Lily raised a hand gently. There's no need to fuss. I just want a fair transaction. The same respect anyone should receive when they walk through your doors. Her gaze shifted to Blake, who stood frozen in place, his earlier arrogance replaced by visible regret. I believe every person deserves to be treated with dignity, she continued. Yesterday reminded me that not everyone shares that belief. The manager shot a nervous glance at Blake. Mr. Morrison, he said tightly, we'll discuss this later. But Lily shook her head. No need, she said softly. I'm not here to ruin careers. I'm here to set an example. Over the next hour, the dealership transformed. Staff whispered as they watched. Lily calmly discussed options with Frank. She selected 12 vehicles, a mix of sedans, vans, and compact cars, all for the Foundation's outreach program. And among them, the same silver sedan from yesterday. But this time it wasn't for her. It was for a single mother in her program, a woman who'd been walking 5 miles to work every day after her car broke down. As the paperwork finalized, Blake lingered awkwardly nearby, watching silently as Lily signed the documents with quiet authority. His reflection in the glass looked smaller now, humbled. When Frank handed Lily the keys, the entire showroom seemed to pause. The same space that had witnessed her humiliation, a day earlier, now echoed with respect. She turned to Blake one last time. Blake, she said, her tone gentle but firm. Yesterday you measured my worth by my clothes, not my character. You decided who I was before I said a word. But the truth is, kindness doesn't care about uniforms. And respect shouldn't depend on income. Blake's lips parted, his voice barely a whisper. Miss Chen, I'm truly sorry. Lily nodded. I know you are. But remember this. The person you look down on today might be the one writing your paycheck tomorrow. The words hung in the air like sunlight cutting through clouds. No anger, just truth. As she prepared to leave, Frank extended his hand. It's been a long time since I've seen someone handle a lesson with this much grace, he said. Lily smiled. Thank you, Frank. I just hope it reminds people. Decency is free, and yet it's the most valuable thing you can give. The glass doors slid open, sunlight flooding the entrance as she stepped outside. Her heels clicked against the wet pavement, echoing like punctuation marks at the end of a chapter. Inside, Blake sat motionless at his desk, staring down at a glossy brochure he could no longer read. His reflection in the polished surface looked different, smaller, quieter. Maybe for the first time thoughtful. The news spread faster than anyone could have predicted. Within an hour, whispers moved through the dealership like wind through glass doors. That's Lily Chen, the Chen Foundation founder. She bought 12 cars. Every salesperson, mechanic, and manager who had ever walked past a customer without a second glance suddenly felt the weight of their own behavior. The same showroom that had hummed with easy confidence yesterday now carried something quieter, humility. Lily stood near the service counter as the final documents printed. The morning light poured through the wide windows, washing over the cars until they gleamed like polished mirrors. She looked around and felt a deep sense of peace. Not revenge, not pride, but closure. It wasn't about punishing Blake Morrison. It was about reminding everyone that power doesn't always come wrapped in wealth or status. Sometimes it comes in patience, in holding your ground with dignity, when the world expects you to crumble. Frank approached with a warm smile, holding the last set of keys. Everything's ready, Miss Chen, he said softly. The vehicles will be detailed and delivered to your foundation headquarters by tomorrow morning. Thank you, Frank, Lily replied, her tone gentle. And thank you for speaking up yesterday. Not everyone would have. The older man shrugged modestly. My mother used to tell me respect is free. If you can't afford that, you can't afford anything. Seems your grandmother believed something similar. Lily smiled at that, her eyes softening. She did. She always said the way we treat others when no one's watching reveals who we really are. Frank nodded. Wise woman. Meanwhile, at his desk, Blake sat motionless. He had spent the past 30 minutes replaying yesterday's scene in his head. Every word, every smirk, every time he'd called her sweetheart like she was less than him. The memory made him sick to his stomach now. He could feel eyes on him. His coworkers weren't mocking him, not this time. They were avoiding him. Embarrassment had settled into the space around his desk like a fog no one wanted to breathe in. Finally, Blake stood and walked over to Lily. His polished shoes clicked on the tile, a sound far too loud for how small he suddenly felt. He stopped a few feet from her, hands clenched nervously at his sides. "Miss Chen," he said quietly, "I don't expect forgiveness, but I do owe you an apology, a real one. Yesterday I treated you like you didn't matter. And the truth is, that says a lot more about me than it ever did about you." Lily studied him for a moment. There was no anger in her eyes, only an unsettling calm, the kind that makes you want to do better. "Apologies are a start, Blake," she said. "But what matters more is what you do next, how you treat the next person who walks through those doors." He nodded slowly. "You're right. I've been in sales for 10 years and thought I understood people. Turns out I only knew how to judge them." Lily's expression softened. "You still have time to change that, we all do. The question is whether you will." Blake lowered his gaze. "I will." She extended her hand. "Then we're good." For a second he hesitated and then shook her hand. It wasn't just a gesture of peace. It was the first step toward becoming someone different. By the time the contracts were complete, the entire dealership had gathered discreetly in the background. Some stood by the office doors. Others lingered near the displays, pretending to polish cars. Every one of them was watching, learning. Lily turned toward the staff. "Before I go," she said, her voice steady and clear, "I want to say something, not just to Mr. Morrison, but to everyone here." The room fell silent. "Yesterday I walked in here wearing my diner uniform. Some of you smiled politely, others didn't look twice, and one of you decided my worth based on my clothes. But the truth is, none of that defines who we are. Titles, paychecks, uniforms, they're temporary. What lasts is how we make people feel." Her words lingered in the air. No one moved. "My grandmother used to tell me, you can tell a lot about a person by how they treat someone who can do nothing for them." Yesterday, that lesson was tested here. Today I think we all passed it, and eventually. There were a few nods from the staff. Even the general manager looked moved. Lily continued, "I don't want anyone to be fired because of what happened. Growth matters more than punishment. I hope what happened here becomes a reminder that every person who walks through your doors deserves respect, whether they're buying a car or just asking for directions." Frank cleared his throat, clearly emotional. "Miss Chen, I think we all needed to hear that." She smiled warmly. "So did I, Frank. Sometimes life gives us moments that humble us, and sometimes it gives us moments that heal us." As the final papers were handed over, the atmosphere shifted completely. The same floor that had once echoed with arrogance now felt filled with quiet gratitude. Employees whispered kind words to customers. Someone even opened the door for a young mother with a stroller. Something Lily noticed with a small smile. Blake walked toward the glass wall that overlooked the parking lot, watching as Lily's silver sedan was prepared for delivery. The same car he'd mocked her for wanting. The irony wasn't lost on him. "Beautiful car," Frank said as he joined him at the window. Blake nodded. "She's something else, isn't she?" "She is," Frank agreed. "And so's the car." They both laughed quietly, tension finally breaking. Outside, Lily paused before getting into her black company SUV. The air was crisp, the sky impossibly blue. She took one last look at the building. The dealership that had shown her both cruelty and kindness, ignorance and growth. She thought of her grandmother again. "The world will test your grace when you least expect it." Today she understood those words better than ever. Lily smiled, climbed into the SUV, and drove away, leaving behind more than paperwork or purchased vehicles. She left behind a lesson that would outlast every shiny car in that showroom. Days passed, but the story of Lily Chen and the dealership didn't fade. Someone had filmed part of the incident, a quiet video showing her standing in her diner uniform, surrounded by luxury cars, calmly teaching an unforgettable lesson. Within a week it went viral. The clip wasn't about wealth. It was about humility, the kind the world often forgets. Comment sections flooded with words like "grace under pressure," a modern Cinderella story, and proof that kindness costs nothing. But Lily didn't care for the fame. She wasn't looking for it. Her world was simpler, the foundation, her volunteers, the people who needed her help. Every morning she still tied her hair in the same bun, wore the same shoes, and greeted her team with the same gentle voice. Yet something inside her had shifted. One afternoon, she sat by the foundation's glass window, overlooking the community park where children were playing. A gentle smile touched her lips as she saw a little girl fall, then rise again with the help of her friend. It reminded her of something her grandmother once said. You can't control how people see you, but you can always control how you make them feel. Lily had lived by that truth her whole life, and now the world had seen it too. Her assistant Maya approached her desk with a phone in hand. Miss Chen, she said, you've received over 2,000 messages since this morning. News outlets want interviews. Car magazines want to feature your story. Lily chuckled softly. Tell them I'm not the story. The lesson is, Maya smiled. You always say that. Because it's true, Lily replied. Stories fade. But lessons, they echo. Meanwhile, at the dealership, life had changed as well. The owner, Mr. Graham, had watched the viral video too. He wasn't angry, he was ashamed. He called a meeting, gathered his staff, and announced a new policy. Every customer must be treated with dignity, regardless of appearance, status, or background. He even had a plaque mounted near the entrance, engraved with Lily's grandmother's quote, "Respect is free. If you can't afford that, you can't afford anything." Underneath the quote, a small brass plate read, "Dedicated to Lily Chen, for reminding us who we are." Blake still worked there, but he wasn't the same man. He had traded arrogance for empathy. Instead of chasing commissions, he focused on connections. He started listening, asking, understanding. Every customer was now a story, not a sale. One afternoon, as he handed a new car key to a young couple, the husband smiled and said, "You're the guy from that video, aren't you? The one who judged the woman?" Blake's heart tightened, but he nodded. "Yeah, that was me." The man grinned kindly. "Looks like you learned something." Blake smiled back. "I did. Best lesson of my life." As they left, Frank clapped him on the shoulder. "You did good, kid. Proud of you." Blake looked at the plaque on the wall, Lily's words gleaming under the sunlight. For the first time in a long while, he felt proud of the man he was becoming. Weeks later, Lily visited the dealership again, quietly, without cameras, without announcement. She just wanted to see if the lesson had lasted. To her surprise, it had. She saw Blake helping an elderly couple find a wheelchair-accessible model. She saw a new receptionist offering water to every visitor. She saw laughter, respect, and teamwork, things no amount of money could buy. When Blake noticed her standing near the entrance, his eyes widened in disbelief. "Miss Chen," Lily smiled. "Just checking in." He grinned. "We've been waiting for you to come back. Everything's different now." "I can see that," she said. "And I'm proud." Blake hesitated, then asked, "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "I used to think success was about how much you earn. But after that day, I realized success is how many people you lift while climbing." Lily nodded. "That's the truth most people take a lifetime to learn." He smiled. "Thanks to you, I learned it sooner." Later that evening, Lily sat in her car, watching the city lights shimmer like scattered stars. She thought of her grandmother again, the woman who'd raised her with nothing but love and wisdom. Her grandmother had once told her, "The world won't always be kind, child, but never let it change your kindness." Lily whispered softly, "I didn't, Grandma. I didn't." A tear rolled down her cheek, not from sadness but from peace. She had faced arrogance and ignorance, and answered both with grace. As the traffic lights turned green, she drove off, her reflection fading into the night skyline. A woman who proved that true power doesn't shout, it listens. That true class isn't about luxury. It's about character, and that the richest heart is the one that gives respect freely. Weeks later, Frank received a handwritten letter at the dealership. It was sealed with golden ink and carried Lily's elegant handwriting. Inside it read, "Dear Frank, I just wanted to say thank you. Not for helping me with the cars, but for reminding me that good people still exist in this world. You spoke up when it mattered, and that meant more than any sale. Please keep being that voice of kindness. Lily Chen." Frank folded the letter carefully and placed it inside the drawer next to the keys. He didn't tell anyone about it. Some things were meant to be kept close to the heart. Months later, people still talked about the woman in the diner uniform. Her video continued to inspire small acts of kindness, in restaurants, in offices, in schools. And somewhere in another corner of the world, a young girl watched that same clip and whispered to herself, "One day I'll be like her." The echo continued and was soft, steady, endless, because the lesson wasn't about money. It was about grace, about seeing people before judging them, about remembering that kindness never goes out of style.